How are you doing?
Hey, I love you.
How are you?
Hello.
Let's go!
Hi, everyone. Welcome to this session today. I am May.
And I'm Ebony. This is a show about sharing honest conversations, sometimes messy, sometimes insightful, but always authentic.
We're serving up a slice of chaos and comfort as we navigate our life in our 20s.
So whether you're listening while commuting, doing laundry, or just avoiding your responsibilities, we're so glad that you're here.
And we have a special announcement today. We have actually hit our 1 year mark for the Are You OK podcast. Thank you so much for being part of our community this past year. And it's actually kind of been a surprise for Ebony and I as well. We did not keep track of this. Yeah. Just before our recording, I told Ebony, because I also only realized about a week ago, this marks something so special and we're so excited to be able to share this moment with you as well. So welcome, welcome, welcome. We're going to start off with a quick acknowledgement of country. So today, your hosts from Australia are checking in from the lands of the Camaragal and the Darug people, and we are so honoured to pay our respects to the true custodians of Australia and to practice the important art of storytelling through recording this podcast. And for me, mabuhay Philippines! Andito ako ngayon in Puerto Princesa, Palawan para matutunan ang culture. And I am so grateful na makapunta rito at makapag-record for the podcast, which means hello from the Philippines. So I am here right now in Puerto Princesa, Palawan to learn about the culture and do some study and internships. And I am so grateful to be able to come here and record for the podcast. So for today's event, it is co-presented by 3 incredible organizations. The first is us.
May and I are your hosts from Are You OK? And Are You OK? Is a podcast run by us, 2 20-something-year-olds. And we are just basically sharing all of our passions, and we talk about a lot of topics around mental health and all of our experiences learning and living life in our 20s. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube.
Thanks, Ebony. And yeah, our motto for starting has always been to bring authentic conversations into a virtual and digital space. We felt that there was kind of a lack of authentic perspectives and narratives of what it's really like to be in your 20s. The messy, the beautiful, the successes, the failures. So that's what we're presenting in our Are You OK? Podcast. And now you're part of it. So that's quite amazing.
Welcome to
Our
the community.
second partner, yes, welcome to the community. Our second partner that's joining us is the PAACI community. Josh and Chantel, I'll hand over to you for this one.
Thank you very much. Hi, my name is Joshua Santos. I am representing as a board director for NARA Co-op. We are on a mission to build Australia's first Philippine-Australian Arts, Culture and Innovation Centre, and I am this year's 2026 Ambassador for Culture and the Arts, where I am exploring ways we can build brave intergenerational spaces where arts, culture, identity and community connect. Now I'll hand it over to Chantel.
Hi everyone, I'm Chantel Cortez Maglalang. I'm part of the PAACI Next Gen Circle, and I'm also a designer, artist, scene maker, storyteller, and academic. I'm really passionate about the intricate threads of culture and history intersecting with design, justice, and daily life.
So, just a bit of an intro about us. As NARA, we're a New South Wales community organisation that have been uniting Filipino Australians through events, exhibitions, heritage, preservation and creative expression. That definition is increasingly expanding to be more inclusive as people, come from various diverse cultural backgrounds. We're now working on a very future-focused initiative. We're on a mission to build the next cultural home where people can express culture and identity.
Amazing, Josh. Thank you so much for that overview. And today we are thrilled to be piloting a new co-branded partnership today with the Philippine Mental Health Association Palawan chapter, or PMHA Palawan. And they are on the ground in Puerto Princesa doing incredible community-rooted mental health work. And we are so honored to have them with us. I'm just going to hand over to Sir Josh to give us a really brief overview of the Palawan chapter.
Hi everyone. I would like to extend our sincere gratitude to everyone for having us. I am Joshua Emmanuel Bacual Alataya, and I am the program officer and currently the officer in charge of Philippine Mental Health Association Palawan chapter. Together with me is our admin staff, Dave Rocaberte. We are actually at the forefront of giving a mental health service for 75 years already. So we've been doing mental health services, community engagements, and doing educational campaign just to give more knowledge, especially to our citizen, to be more open about mental health. As part of our mission, we want to exist to promote mental health and well-being among the general population. As part of our vision, we would want that all the Filipino people will have its highest level of mental health. One of our dilemmas, especially here in Palawan, they're not really open to talk about it. But of course, with the community approach and community engagement that we done for the province of Palawan, we are slowly opening them to understand why mental health matters, why mental health should be talked about, and why we should prioritize mental health.
Thank you so much, Josh. We're just going to give you a brief overview of what's in store for the next 90 minutes. We'll kick off with a fun icebreaker and a short pre-event survey, and then move on into the panel discussion, which I'm so excited for. And this will be across 3 conversation blocks. They will be run by myself and also Josh from PAACI. And then after that, Chantel from PAACI will be leading a live virtual workshop called Arts in Advocacy. And then that will be followed by our post-event survey and then some final reflections to close with. And just before we begin, since we are talking about mental health, I just wanted to put a quick but important note. Today's conversation, as it touches on mental health, cultural identity, and lived experiences, including topics such as stigma, help-seeking, emotional distress. We want this to be a brave but safe space to be talking about all of these things. And so if you ever feel overwhelmed, it's okay to step away for a moment and come back to the conversation. So,
Let's go.
let's go! So we are joined with some beautiful, incredible panelists for today. So though born in Sydney, Raine was raised across East and Southeast Asia by her Chinese-Filipino mother, shaping her multilingual and multicultural identity. She returned to Australia 25 years later to complete a Bachelor of Health Science majoring in nutrition and exercise, and is now pursuing a master's by research. Raine's work is rooted in bridging ancestral wisdom with modern science to redefine approaches to health longevity across body, mind, and soul. Next, we have Cait Salonga. So Cait is a young Filipino studying psychology in Melbourne and has lived experience for advocacy for mental health support that is culturally and socially informed. Her passion is driven by the hope of seeing young Filipinos thrive physically and emotionally. Damon is a graduate of BS Psychology with a major in clinical psychology and is currently pursuing a master's degree in counseling and guidance. He serves as the administrative assistant at PMHA Palawan chapter, where he conducts client intake assessments and supports mental health programs. A trained crisis hotline responder, peer facilitator, and trainer, Dave actively promotes mental health awareness, suicide prevention, and youth empowerment. He's also the co-author of the award-winning research paper, Understanding the Lived Experiences of Filipino Male Victims of Domestic Violence, which was published in the Asian Journal of Resilience in 2023. And he's also the host and creator of the podcast, Life Unfiltered, because mental health matters. And finally, we have Joshua Emmanuel Alutaya. He is the program officer of PMHA Palawan chapter, and Josh has spearheaded the project Brave, Building COVID-Safe Responses and Voices for Equity, which is a youth-oriented program of PMHA in partnership with UNFPA and Australian Aid. He leads the community-based mental health programs for frontliners and youth in partnership with Johnson & Johnson, conducts intake assessments, facilitates the Peer Facilitator Program in partnership with the City Health Office and DepEd. Joshua is also a proud member of the Junior Chamber International Palawan region. Welcome, panelists. Thank you so much for being here. And I wanted to start with the first block of questions. This is a really big question, How has your culture, your own, or a community that you've worked with shaped the way that you understand, express, or talk about mental health? And what from that experience has shaped your advocacy? And I'm going to jump the question to you, Raine. What are your thoughts on this question?
Sure. So I'm someone who grew up predominantly in the Philippines. And so returning to Australia had a huge culture shock for me coming here. Growing up in the Philippines, my mother is actually a beauty queen. And so was her mother and her mother. And so that's what really pushed me towards pursuing the beauty queen industry when I was younger and I was modeling then. And so that also shaped how I appreciate health. And so if you've ever grown up in the Philippines, all your titas, titos, lolas, they'll be like, oh, you've gained some weight. And that's always the first thing that they check in with you. It's not like in Japan where they ask you, oh, o genki desu ka? Are you healthy? So for me, that's where, it's interesting, these different cultural nuances. And when you speak different languages, it also brings out different parts of your own identity. And growing up in that beauty queen modeling industry, it exposed me a lot of things of how it actually brings a community together. It's kind of like in Australia, you've got the footy game and people are cheering so hard for these teams. But in the Philippines, it's that beauty queen industry. And there's a huge connection to also the tourism sector. And so then you're exposed to food, to dancing, to heritage events. And when you're working with so many different sectors, you also develop a huge emotional literacy or emotional intelligence. And that's where I think from what I know, and this is what I've been exposed to, a lot of Filipinos tend to work in the tourism or healthcare industry when they go overseas because they're just so accommodating, so compassionate, and so caring. And there's a huge connection with spirituality, faith, and family. And we see that carry through. And so in terms of how it shaped my identity, I've got my pai in the background here, my little pai. So when it's really hot here in Adelaide where I live, I'm like, ay, sus Dios mío, init kaayo. And that's what we say in Cebu when it's really hot and we're just fanning ourselves. So wherever you go, your culture's always a part of you. And I think it just transcends wherever you go.
That was filled with so many experiences. Thank you so much. I really took away how, beauty standards and how we express ourselves through tourism-rich culture that we've kind of facilitated in our society in the Philippines, and how that's embedded your understanding of how we talk about health and spirituality and all of that. So thank you so much. I'm going to toss the question to Cait now. What are your thoughts on this question?
Yeah, for sure. So I actually have the same background as Raine. So I'm Filipino Chinese as well, but I was born and raised here in the Philippines and only moved to Melbourne 4 years ago. Growing up, I'd say I was a really creative kid, but I grew up in a Filipino Chinese community. So that would entail having to study really hard and being really good at maths, English. But for some reason, I felt like I couldn't resonate with, being that really good student. And so part of me was just being that creative kid, and it wasn't well accepted in the community. Growing up, I felt a lot of distress and anxiety, and I eventually got diagnosed with clinical depression, and the stigma from that as well was pretty horrible because everyone would just say, oh, you're lazy, why are you tired all the time? So all of these things really kind of crushed me growing up in this environment. And for a while, I genuinely hated my identity as a Filipino Chinese. I was like, oh, I can't do this. And culture to me was just, I just existed in this environment and I wanted to get away from it as much as possible. But kind of getting better, finding support within a Filipino school, finding young people who really just appreciated creativity as well. I realized that I didn't have to hate my life. And moving to Melbourne, I think fleshed that out for me. My first year, I was really homesick. And what I would do was I would listen to a lot of OPM, and I never used to listen to OPM back home. So it was crazy. Yeah, I was it opened my eyes. I was like, oh my gosh. And then I started watching a lot of Feature. I don't know if you know Features by Erwin Husoff. I started getting into local indigenous culture and all that stuff. And I would illustrate things from the videos that I would watch. And I realized that I was so proud of who I was. It was just kind of getting to that new side of culture that I was never exposed to. And I realized that, as a Filipino in another context, cultural mental health is so important. And, that idea of pakikisama, I love being with people. And I didn't realize that before moving abroad. I thought I was just, introverted or whatever. But then I realized like being with the right people really flushes out those innate values that I have as a Filipino. So yeah.
That's so amazing. What I took away from that is that it brought up a quote, distance makes the heart grow fonder. And that's really what resonated with me from your conversation that you just shared. And also the fact that cultural identity can only be distinguished by different cultures and being exposed to what is the comparison out there. And it seems like you really got that comparison once you made that leap to move to Melbourne and find yourself in a different culture where it was like, oh, I actually miss what I had back home. So yeah. Okay, I'm going to toss the question now to Sir Josh. What are your thoughts on this question, Josh?
Hello, May. So, for me, I literally grew up here in the Philippines, and especially like me myself, I am part of the indigenous people here in the Philippines. My family is from that group, so there's a lot of things going up. So it's really hard to understand what's going on around because there's lots of beliefs, superstitions like that. So you know that if you go to another place, you have to bite a tree for you not to get cursed by the fairy or like that. So there's a lot of going on in the Philippines. So if you come here, if you believe in the superstitions like that, you will be living in full of fear like that. But growing up, it was fun. It's really fun. But here in the Philippines, what I love the most, it's really made Filipino more stronger, more independent, especially in any kind of problems and any kind of circumstances that comes in our way. We choose to be happy, smile. We choose to be more open. We choose to be more light and handling it. And it's really good that I grew up in this kind of place itself. And it really affected myself, especially my understanding, my belief growing up. It's really one of the best factor. I think I'm good with that.
Thank you so much. And before I go on, I forgot to mention a special kudos to Sir Josh and Dave. They are doing their absolute best to speak in English, which I'm so grateful for. So maraming salamat po. And thank you so much, Sir Josh. It sounds like there was a confusion of that identity exploration when you started off with the different sides of spirituality and the indigenousness that you carried and the beliefs that were contradicting, but then finding that truth for yourself through all of those questionings and defining what really is the belief for you. The second question is going to be run by Josh, actually. I'll introduce the section for you. This question is, when it comes to mental health conversations in your culture or community, what is missing and what already exists that helps? Are there words, values, or ways of understanding well-being that are unique to your cultural community? Josh, I'll hand over to you now.
Yes, thank you very much. I would like to pass that question first, whom I'm starting to see as my twin, Josh.
Hi, hello. We call it Tokayo. If you have the same name, we call it Tokayo. Like twin name, Tokayo. Yeah, to answer that question, what I noticed right before I became part of Philippine Mental Health Association, I used to be in that position also because when they talked about mental health, they knew nothing but crazy. They knew nothing but baliw. They knew nothing but kabuangan, like only that context. I'll just elaborate that when they hear mental health, they think that it's only for crazy people. It's not easy for me to explain it to them how to fully understand about mental health. So what missing was full awareness about mental health. That's the reason why right after becoming part of Philippine Mental Health Association, I always do lots of engagements with community to properly give them basic mental health for them to be openly knowledgeable about mental health and for them not to put in the context that mental health is for only those who are being diagnosed or who are being sick or has this illness, but mental health is for everyone. Mental health is for everyone and mental health should matter and should talked about and not just to make fun of it. So that's actually what I am doing. That's the reason why I kept on roaming around the whole province of Palawan. We've been reaching the grassroots, the remote areas, and other groups for them to be fully aware about mental health. And it's really hard for me. I am not a graduate of psychology. About mental health, I knew nothing before. But because of my perseverance, my belief, and my interest in knowing about mental health, I think I used that power to fully understand what is mental health is. This is what I am using to share knowledge to our community, especially in the Philippines. Stigma is always there. So it's one of my advocacies to eradicate the stigma. And by doing it, I have to fully understand what is mental health is. And that's actually what I think that's missing in our community. So I think I was able to answer the question, Josh.
Yes. Thank you. Great that you're doing this at a grassroots level. We know that in indigenous cultures, it's that relationship with the land and sea. And I'm sure when you show people around, that whole storytelling process must be very regenerative, especially for those people who are, trying to discover their root. I can definitely speak from experience being a psychology graduate myself, that it's aligned with the research that mental health is for everyone. Just like how you have your own sort of physical injuries, we experience challenges in our life. It's really important to see a counselor or to be able to speak to someone. We all need it. It's part of our being human to belong and to also feel safe. So I'll pass the question also to Cait.
So actually, I think what Josh said was really what I was kind of thinking in my head as well. So growing up with mental health problems and, that sort of diagnosis, when I was younger, I would just go walk to my tutor and I'd be like really down and all. But I remember thinking once, I was like, if I get better, I really want to use myself to help other people. It was really big because I thought maybe I would never survive this. And I guess that's why having mental health conversations became so important in my life. Even if at first I was so embarrassed to talk about having problems or feeling distress, I realized that it was that fear that was holding me back from helping other people. And so I kind of weave that into my daily conversations and my daily life of just really empowering people to feel well-being and tackling that stigma one conversation at a time. Recently, when I was back home in the Philippines last summer, I hosted two kind of like focused group discussions with young Filipinos to understand how well-being is kind of understood from a perspective. And having these conversations, I came to realize that young Filipinos are becoming more and more open. I mean, some communities less so than others, but it's kind of breaking out. And it's really exciting to see because people are starting to be aware of mental health and well-being and, kind of working together as a collective and sparking these conversations, feeling like yourself, you don't have that shame because mental health should be talked about. If you contract a serious disease, you'd want to tell everybody how not to contract it. And just kind of supporting one another. I think stigma is still pretty prevalent in many communities. For instance, I'd say my personal community, stigma is still pretty intense. But the way I do it, especially for older generations, is, bringing in other things like food and just gentle conversations to see how they might want to understand well-being. It's not kind of forcing in terms like mental illness or distress that is really Western heavy conversations and ideas, but really trying to understand mental health from this local perspective and seeing what we can take to empower these people. Because what mental health should be shared, it shouldn't be stigmatized, even if their view is, a little bit different. There's ways in which we can kind of do it in a roundabout way. Because stigma comes from social and cultural trauma and expectations that many people don't realize are so ingrained in their life. And so it's really being that, this kind and gentle person in conversations and just to be open to many new ideas and to sharing how you experience well-being and how you've overcome well-being in your life.
Love that. Thank you so much for just sharing your grounded lived experience. And it really speaks to many people in our audience today that may be still trying to figure things out, but I know that there would be great resonance. I loved how you also opened the conversation about different generations and how we sort of invite them. So I would like to also pass the question to Raine.
I grew up in Cebu, and so the language that we speak there is Cebuano or Bisaya. And Joshua pointed out something really important early on about like buang. So that means crazy. But in our language, we call it praning. So it's the same meaning. It means you're crazy. And the reason why I have to touch point on this, because it's also related to our elders. If you seek any mental support, any professional support in the psychological mental health space, then you'd be considered as praning. And that's really the tradition of what's been passed down, especially if you live in country in the Philippines. And over the past 20 years, I've really observed how if you've got emotional struggles and they're hidden, that's very normal, but it's evolved because science is evolving and psychology is now integrated as a science, and people can kind of lean in towards seeking help. And that's why we have organizations that exist to open up opportunities for people to then talk about things. And this is where we have to lean into a word that I know as bayanihan. And this is the bayanihan spirit where together we come and we work together to achieve this unified goal. And so in Japan and China, this is known as social responsibility. Who are we as a community? I work in the health space, and in our research, we have found, and it's been reported, where community is actually a big predictor of your happy, long life. You're not just like aging and you're frail and you're sick, but you're aging and you're graceful and you're filled with vitality and you feel like you're integrated and you're part of something. So if we're trying to bridge the gap between the elders and the young, that's something maybe to lean in towards. Bayanihan, let's come together. In my own work, I've tried to do this through my own community projects when I used to live in the Philippines. One was encouraging the youth to get into weightlifting as a way to move from drugs and issues socially. You have some negative habits that may cause social violence, or even as a rehabilitation activity to save you from any physical, psychological, or sexual abuse. So I had my own weightlifting project before, and another one was supporting fisher folk in remote communities of Cebu through Project Coral to empower locals to speak up. Hey, we have to protect our environment, because as grateful as we are for tourists that come and bless the Philippine economy, they also contribute to a lot of waste issues or practices that may hurt the environment. And we always have to think about community, especially those who may not have access to certain things that higher socioeconomic classes may have. And so that's where we must always empower the locals to speak up, to encourage them about sustainable ecotourism, and also educate the foreigners that, okay, we got to take care of the land, because there's some people who really depend on that fish. And if you're putting on your sunscreen and you're not waiting 15 to 20 minutes, then it causes coral bleaching. And then you've wiped out all of the food for the locals. And so this is where we really have to go back to what is community. But how I met May to join this incredible podcast today was actually through a scholarship program that sent me to Taiwan. And I studied a trauma-informed approach. And this is where we don't look at someone and say, hey, you're crazy, something's wrong with you. We have to look at them as, what happened to you in your life that caused you to be the way that you are. And so when we look through this trauma-informed lens, we have more sensitivity towards the individual and their history, but also what can we do to adjust ourselves so we could come together. And so this is where I hope through these different lenses of social responsibility, through a trauma-informed approach, this can help bridge the gap and just bring people together. Because at the end of the day, we do have that shared goal of we want the future for the next generation to be better. And so this is where certain rituals like pag-aso, where you burn an incense in the new place you live, or you amen and bless your elders, or you say tabi when you're walking in a foreign place, it allows us to recognize the traditions, bring them into the future, and maybe our elders will be more receptive towards our new crazy ideas.
Love that, Rain. That is so inspiring. So much wisdom and lived experience. And it's super connected, especially across the regions. What's really cool as well with your experience in Taiwan is actually with the Filipino identity, we're known to be Austronesian, and that originated from Taiwan. So just building the connections there.
And there was a recent boat ride that the Taiwanese indigenous community retook to just trace the relationship between Taiwan and the Philippines. So if you're interested in looking at that news, it happened, I think, last week or the week before. They did the travel route on a boat ride like our elders did 200 or 500 years ago.
Reactivating that relationship with culture, right? Yay! Way to end on a high. I'll pass it back to May.
Yes. And before we do look into what's next, I'm going to ask Dave. I am pretty sure his mic is working now. So welcome back, Dave.
Okay, thank you so much, May. What is missing right now is still, like what Sir Josh said, there's still stigma, especially in the Philippines when it comes to mental health, because there is an old culture and belief that mental health is like something that is spiritual. If you're gonna talk about mental health, there is something bad happening to you in spiritual aspect. But mental health is a universal thing. It is not just about spirituality, but also it's all about social, psychological, and emotional aspect. I'll focus on social aspect because the stigma can be broken in a way that we can listen to other people's story. The way we listen to other people's story can also be the best way that mental health can be spread in a way na we can understand one another with a different culture, different languages, but our creativity and arts can make us united as one, and we can also make a connection with mental health and also the culture that we have in a different way. And by telling a story, our experiences can help to break that kind of stigma. And I think that's how I explain it.
Yes. Thank you so much, Dave. I think Sir Josh wants to mention something.
Yeah, I just want to give a quick manifestation on what Rain mentioned earlier. Actually, it's really missing is how the parents put into the mind of a children to deal with their emotions, especially if the children will be vulnerable. They will tell their emotion like, Mama, I'm hurt. Mama, I have this feeling. And then the validation wasn't there. The validation wasn't being given to them. So I think that's how it really affects the well-being of that children, and how it really became a problem, turned into a mental health concern, and turned into a big factor why this person became like this. In my experience, if you done mistake, they will not connect with you first, they will correct you first. So now we practice, before you correct your children, you have to connect with them, you have to understand them. You have to make them understand. And before you correct them, you build the connection, the good connection with you, with your parents and with your child. It's so that the problem will be solved.
That really speaks to the kind of intergenerational conversations that we're starting to have, as other Josh mentioned. And yeah, that's a really important point to raise. And just to tune back into what Dave was mentioning with how arts and creativity, there's so many ways to innovate and express ourselves in different platforms and in different ways. And that really just brought up the past week where I've been singing a lot in office. I had the opportunity to sing a lot, and I don't speak Tagalog very well, but I feel like that kind of cultural and linguistic gap was bridged with arts, and I was so grateful that I could still sing some OPM despite my very broken Tagalog in speaking, but I can sing it. So yeah, that really just brought to mind all of the experiences I've had here, which I'm so grateful for. And yeah, we're going to move on to the next and last final block for today. This is a kind of overview conversation, which I think we've all been naturally speaking about our own kind of advocacy measures and achievements that we've been on. The question is, how do cultural practices such as art, music, storytelling, food tradition, dance, community rituals show up in the way that people heal and advocate that you've seen? And how do you draw on this in your own work to help others find their voice? I'll jump over to Cait for this one.
So I really like drawing, and like I said, what really gets me going and what really helped me through a chunk of my depression was really drawing and creating and realizing that I had purpose. I feel like art really makes you realize that, hey, I have purpose, even in small ways. And it also makes you kind of look out and realize that the world is so big. And that's what I love so much about art. And another thing that I kind of came to really enjoy. So back then I had really bad social anxiety. So it's kind of crazy that I host stuff now. Some of my friends and we host dinner parties. It's called accompaniment. And what we do is bring together young people. So this is in Melbourne right now, but hopefully one in Manila will come up soon. And recently we partnered with an Australian organization called Ending Loneliness Together. So it's this fight against loneliness. And one way we did that was kind of bringing people together through food and conversations, because one way to really kind of talk about loneliness is just being connected with other people, because it's really difficult to say, just don't be lonely, find a group. But when you're actively looking for people, actively thinking about bringing in people together, that's when conversations start. And what's the best way to get everybody's senses all going is literally food, because everyone is so excited to talk, to eat, to just like heart eyes over the food. I literally cooked rellenong bangus, which is, if you know it, it's like a pain to prepare. But, it's that labor of love and gathering together with my friends to be like, hey, we're gonna gather ingredients together. We're gonna spend the whole day cooking. We're gonna decorate. We use banana leaf to just spread out across the table. And it's such a fun experience because, it's a cold winter day in Melbourne. Just picture it. And it was really rainy that day as well. So just being able to make new conversations, and many people didn't even know each other. So having that avenue to come together to talk and make friends is really a good way to fight, loneliness or other mental health struggles in sort of that cultural lens. It's kind of like that one step away from needing that really intense care. And I think that art does that job really well of, you having agency to start conversations and bringing in together people without mental health feeling or sounding too heavy. And I think in some social contexts like the Philippines, these avenues are really, really important to bridging that gap between mental health stigma and, help seeking and just promoting mental health and well-being and fighting stigma together. So yeah, that's what I do.
Oh my goodness. You make me so jealous that I don't live in Melbourne. I'm not kidding.
Oh my God, I'm literally
I'm
gonna
about to
cook for you.
Yeah, thank you. Please, thank you. Everything that you said resonated with me so well, and you will see we have something really, really cool in just a moment in regards to the arts component. But yes, I resonate so much with food. It's such a beautiful way to be able to connect not only with your culture, but to share that with other people and have this shared experience of something so beautiful that we can relish in and nourish our bodies with. So such a beautiful statement. Thank you so much. And just to toss the question to Raine now.
In connection to food, I'm sorry, it just reminded me of a time during my Miss Cebu reign where I started my own business to collaborate with other people in the community. And I had the opportunity of working with the Cebu Heritage Ambassador named Tita Luella Alin. And we actually did a cooking show together. And I learned so much more about the Cebuano tradition and the history between Cebu and the Philippines as trade with all of the neighboring islands, as well as with the Turkish Empire and the Mexicans. So the Philippine history is actually so deep, so rich, and it's really incredible how we see that in the diversity of all the dishes across the country. And so I just really wanted to highlight that because it's part of our storytelling. Like what you mentioned earlier, Cait, with the dish that you're cooking, I'm like, yes, I know. And it just takes me back, especially when you're not in the country, in the Philippines, to enjoy some of these native dishes. And so that's one example. There are two other things I really wanted to touch base on. And while I was in Cebu, I did do something specifically with the victims of physical abuse, sexual abuse, and sexual trafficking, because at the time when I was living there, it was a big issue. And how I helped some of those victims was I created a rehabilitation program that integrated my background as a yoga teacher, as a weightlifter, and I even just showed them how to breathe again. Because sometimes this is something we hold on to and we forget in this modern lifestyle where we're just holding on to our breaths. But it's really important to deep breathe into your nose, out through your mouth, so you properly oxygenate. And now in science, we learn that when you breathe deeper through your diaphragm, it also engages your vagus nerve and it relaxes you. And the one thing that Filipinos do so well is we sing. And so indirectly, we're activating that vagus nerve, that relaxation effect, and we don't even realize that's what's keeping us so calm, so happy, and so collected. A lot of my Filipino friends here, we end up just singing together, karaoke in each other's homes, and it's just something that brings us together. There's food and there's medicine in that. In medical research, you call this area neuroaesthetics. How your brain, your neurology, is impacted by aesthetics or arts, whether that's singing, dancing, food, whether it's natural lighting and plants in your living environment. All of these different components are what makes us human, and it cultivates that primitive nature of wanting to create. And in this digital age where everyone's consuming, we need to be creating more. So soak up the sun, go into nature, write that poem, shake that booty on the moon, because all of these different things is what brings us life and it brings us together.
What a beautiful statement, Raine. Wow. I feel very validated for the fact that Dave and Sir Josh and we went to Videoke last night, and I was thinking I should be preparing for this event, but it's all in the name of healing. So yes, I activated my vagus nerve last night. So on that note, Sir Josh, who would like to speak on this question?
Okay, to answer the question, May, actually, arts and cultures and other aspect is actually way of our communication and building connection to each other, especially here in the Philippines. If they have the same interest to a certain field like art, singing, dancing, they will just do, oh, magaling ka dyan. Oh, you're good at that. You have that connection already. And by that, you are building good relationship, good camaraderie, good friendship already. You have the same interest. You have the same level of happiness that this thing can give. To include to this one, I actually run a project, the Project Brave, building COVID safe responses to create voices for equity. So during that project, we are actually training marginalized youth to process their emotions, to give them insights on how to properly show their emotions and show their voices. And by doing it, we were able to at least give them the confidence that they need for them to be heard, to speak out whatever they feel, whatever they want to share with. So I think with that project, we were able to give them the voice that we need, especially the younger ones now. They are very full of insights, full of knowledge, and it's really, really timely and relevant to make them have another step, to give them the voice, to speak out, because young generation is actually our future. So we want them to be more equipped, more knowledgeable, and not just because they have the title. They have to do it properly. They have to do it in a rightful manner for them to be in the right situation and right path already. So during that project, I always practice building connection. Like, you're good in dancing. I am a dancer too. You're good in singing. You know what? I love singing, but my voice doesn't work, so I cannot go with you, but I can cheer you up. So I think that's a thing that we can work on, and we can realize that arts and other aspect can really, really do so much better to have a good mental health and well-being to everyone, because that's a communication and building connection already. I think that's it, May. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. You're doing amazing things for the Philippine community in terms of mental health. So I really, really appreciate everything, all the work that you're doing. And I think the key message there was that arts can be a tool. It's a really, really good tool to be able to communicate in ways that language cannot. And yes, I also think that laughter is medicine. I think that phrase really aligns with you, sir, with your personality. Every day is full of laughter, and I think that is healing in its own way. Dave, what are your thoughts on this question?
I think nowadays, like what Sir just said, nowadays youth can't use their voice. That's why we noticed that we need to advocate the young people to use their voice. some of them cannot use their voice inside their house because they feel unheard. But in Philippine Mental Health Association Palawan chapter, we advocate the young people to use their own creativity in a way of telling a story regarding the mental health or mental health advocacy. They can be a voice to the young people also. We are not just the one who teach the young people, but also we train other young people, our volunteers in the office, to teach them, because if they can see the young people like them sharing their thoughts, their experiences, their knowledge about mental health, it became an inspiration to them that I can also use my voice to tell a story what is happening in my life. Because I also noticed that there's a lot of young people nowadays na they can express their real emotion because they feel that it's gonna be invalidated by their family, by their common community or other community that they have that can make them unwelcome. But I believe in the advocacy of mental health. It also highlight the importance of live experiences of young people, because the story that have a similarities with one another can inspire the next generation. I believe also in this saying na if there is someone that can listen to you, meaning you can tell a story, and by telling that kind of story to other people, it will cause an impact to them that will also inspire them and encourage them to tell a story that can cause a big influence to other people around them. And I believe by using the voice of young people, it will give an impact that can change not just them, but also in a small community like school, in a small group. And if that can change that small group or in a school, it can cause a good impact that will change the universe. Yes, that's what I believe po.
That's amazing. I hope you do change the universe, Dave. And just on that note, I think I just wanted to say that, Dave, you are a young person with voice. And I think by you giving and sharing your advocacy, it's giving platform and inspiration to other young people. So I just wanted to give a kudos to you for being a young person advocating for mental health. And Sir Josh?
Quick addition on this, on what Dave mentioned. It's actually one of our way to empower our young generation. Because again, as we all know, Philippines, especially the province of Palawan, doesn't have enough mental health providers. It's really our way to empower them to be the catalyst of their own. Like, if we were be able to equip them about mental health and to be more aware about mental health, they were able to share it with their peers. They were able to share it with their loved ones, for them to have a good relationship, for them to have a good connection. And actually, it's our way to make mental health be broad enough in the province of Palawan. So we want them to practice to seek help naturally, without any stigma. Like, it's normal. Like, if you need anything, if you need help, just seek help for our mental health providers. Just like if you have a cough, you need the doctor to ask for. But in our emotion, if you are dealing with such anxiety, stress, or anything like that, it's normal to seek help. It's not gonna make you a crazy one, but it will make you more full aware of yourself. And by that, I think you're doing self-care already. I think that's it. Thank you.
I just wanted to add that it's really important, if you ever do need help, don't be afraid to reach out. And even though you might be overthinking in your head, lots are going on, it's better to just act on something than thinking about acting for 20 seconds or 20 minutes or however long. So I just really want to emphasize on this today. It's so much better to act on something you're thinking and you're feeling. Seek the help that you need from someone that you trust, someone that you respect, and someone who also respects you back, so that together you can find a way forward, because it's so much better to share than to navigate something completely alone. And that's where, social media has its ups, has its downs, but you really use it to your advantage, where you can talk to someone, where you can have the courage to really express yourself and get the guidance that you need.
Thank you so much for your insights, Raine and Josh. We are going to jump into reflections from the chat, actually. The lovely Chantel has been taking notes of some key insights that were found found from the chat, and I will butcher your names. I am so sorry. But yeah, some cool insights that Chantel found, was that GL talked about how mental health is often not tackled in Philippine homes, as most are collectivist and religious, but they can see that society is changing and the new generations have different and a widened perspective of mental health, which is so cool. Erin spoke about the beauty of pre-colonial Indigenous beliefs, folklore, and wisdom. Jill also brought forward the concept of sinning as a means to heal our inner child. It's expressed through paintings, dance, literature, crafts, etc. Jeliza talked about the courage it requires to be vulnerable with how you feel. Erin is thankful for everyone sharing their stories so openly and how it's such a powerful way to make a difference. And lots of people have different creative outlets, including food, drawing, poems, music, social enterprises that make impact, which is so exciting. So much diversity. Thank you so much for everyone for being here, even if your cameras are not on. We are hearing you. We are seeing you. Thank you to all the panelists. Thank you so much for your insights and conversations. I wish we had like 2 more hours to continue our conversations because the narratives that we were having were so insightful. And on that note, if you are willing and able to stick around for our next workshop, please do so. It is a super cool, insightful workshop. I will now hand over to Chantel to explain, since she will be the lead artist for this section.
Hi everyone. It's good to be speaking as well. I've been keeping track of the chat and it's very exciting and listening into everyone. Just a brief little collage about me, but this main sort of question that's like leading this workshop part is, what does it actually look like when art becomes an act of advocacy? And for me, advocacy is so interlinked in my practice. So I work a lot in climate justice and climate change spaces where I use storytelling. I also make comics and I'm a zine maker, and I'm part of a Filipino-led zine collective in Western Sydney called School of Zines. And I also help facilitate workshops there about storytelling. And I work with my sister, who's also an artist, who works a lot with cultural subjects. And I always try to emphasize that what you care about is a wonderful way to channel the things that you're passionate about in your practice. So we're going to kind of have a go at that now with this really beautiful prompt that we came up with. So through art, I carry blank and I hope it creates blank. I created this little diagram that we can all fill in so that we can all kind of see the collective response from everyone. But whilst that's happening, I'm going to be creating something called a graphic recording, where through everyone's discussions and reflections and musings, I kind of illustrate that and have a tangible art piece that represents our active and ongoing conversation. So I'll share my screen. So this is just a little whiteboard. We have an example right here, and I put Josh's response. And while that's happening, I'll be doing some drawing in this little box.
So super cool initiative from Chantel. And Ebony and I will be taking this section. It's very conversational. If you have any insights that you want to share, feel free to do so in the Canva slides. Yeah, just to help you out with the prompt, I know it's a pretty big one. So the examples that we have for you is, through art, I carry my ancestors' stories, and I hope it creates belonging. Through art, I carry resilience, and I hope it creates understanding. And the one I created for myself is, through art, I carry shared stories, and I hope it creates a sense of belonging. And I was really reflecting on the fact that I use music, as mentioned before, as my main gateway to self-expression and creative expression. And yeah, I think the core of it is that I want to connect with people in a way that is welcoming and open and bridges the barrier of stigma, especially around mental health, and the knowledge that healing can come in so many different shapes and sizes, and emotions are very natural and they're a very human thing, and we don't have to be scared of them. We don't have to be bewildered by all of the technological, scientific words that we toss around so frequently, and to realize that actually it's a human experience that we're trying to talk about when it comes to psychology and mental health and all of these big, scary words. And Raine, you have something to say?
I just really want to add to what you've been saying, because at least in my case, the past 3 years has been recovering from an overprescription of a medication. And as a result, it caused immunodeficiencies and a cascade of issues across different health systems. And now that I'm completely better, I'm so grateful, but I also can't help reflect that, without all the people that I found through the internet, finding my own community, that's what really helped me recover from all the physical and psychological issues of withdrawing from that medication. And it's really attributed to using, search engines and communities out there with the right terms to find where do I belong. And in the end, I discovered someone who was going through the same withdrawal, and she ended up pursuing art and making a documentary about her experience to also advocate and share to other people across the world the dangers of this medicine and how this has been an issue ongoing for over 60 years. And so that's actually the research area that I'm in now. But if it wasn't through art or through this medium of expression, we wouldn't have this connection. So that's why I really encourage everyone, share, create, because it's so good for you. And then you also find the right people where your story resonates, where we can belong, connect, and we have our shared identity.
Thank you so much, Raine. That is such a heartfelt reflection on the experience that you had and how much art was a bridge to connect. And it's so cool that even in digital spaces, we still get to use this. And in the world of AI, as we always talk about the concerns of, artists being out of jobs and things like that, I really do believe that art is human in its form and its nature, and nothing that is artificially intelligenced can really take away from that experience of connecting through art.
I just have a fun fact to share, because NASA and Harvard have done studies on how do you cultivate being a genius, the special population who really innovate and create our problem solvers of society. And what they found was that if you engage in creativity, that's what cultivates genius. So even with all this AI technology, if you don't have imagination, the ability to sit with boredom and create something, then you won't be able to think about the problem and then find a very unique solution that's outside of the box. So even with AI, it always goes back to the user and how they use it that would make it useful. So cultivate that imagination and creativity and don't lose it, because the systems that are in place tend to dumb us down after the age of 5. So engage in as much art as you can and color. Wear lots of color.
I love it, Raine. That actually speaks to something Ebony and I have a related experience to. We went to something called a Steiner school, and we were filled with color and joy and art and creativity, and that was actually part of our education. It was part of the system, and we were so grateful to have that, but we also didn't realize how rare that was and how unfortunately rare it was for a lot of schools and communities. So yeah, we always talk in a hindsight reflective way of gratitude for the education that we had. That was so much color and joy. And on that note, Ebony, what would be your response about this prompt that we've just presented?
I would say, for me, if you don't know, I've got a bit of a community online, so I was really interested in what you were just saying about sharing your shared experiences online, because I've been doing that recently, and I think I've built up a community on almost the basis of this very thing, which is, being open and honest with people, and then they can kind of connect with you on that level. And I think it's such a beautiful thing. So I think my answer for this would be, through art, I carry and share my passions, and I hope it creates a community. So that would be my answer for that.
I would say even a community is an understatement at this point. What are we up to now?
It's almost 600,000.
It's almost 600,000 followers on TikTok. So, I mean, to think of that as individual human beings is insane, because they're following you for a reason. And I think that value of that you carry, of you want to create this safe space in this digital world where everything can be, confusing and discomforting and sad at times. And you're creating this space that is so comforting for people. And the term that you coined is you want to be people's comfort creator. Is that right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I want to be a space where people can come to on the internet, like a little corner of the internet where they can kind of take a break from everything and watch what I do and what I love to share. And it's really beautiful, especially when I have people come up to me in public and say, oh my gosh, I've seen your TikTok and I just want to say, like, I relate to you on this level, or I loved watching your journey with this because I want to do a similar thing, or something like that. And that to me is literally like the reason why I post. And I was saying to May, I was like, even if one person was watching me doing that, I'd be like, that's so cool. So even to have built that up to like 600,000 has just been insane. And I've met people like traveling all around the world who have seen my videos and it's affected them in a positive way, which makes me so happy. And it's also just a great place where I can kind of share my stories. And yeah, I made a post recently about what you see on social media versus what you don't see. And that post has gone really well because I think it just connects to people on a really deeper level. And I think especially in the influencer content creator space, you can see a lot of people sharing things, very surface level things, and you're like, oh, how do I get to that level? But they don't see the work or, you know, the struggles, the self-doubt, all of that to get to kind of where you are now. So I think posts like that I try to do quite often just to really relate with my audience and kind of make sure that, you know, we can kind of bond over this thing like virtually. Yeah.
Yeah. Digital spaces and creativity are, I guess, a new platform in which we can be creative and use art as a form of advocacy. And when we were brainstorming this section, I remember first we were like, is it really advocacy? But then we realized that having a voice in a public space is advocacy in itself, whether you're advocating for something as big as mental health or as big as yourself. That is advocating for something that you are passionate about. So you're doing amazing work, sweetie.
Well, I was thinking, I think like the platform has actually like provided me a voice to kind of, again, like speak about things and like advocate for things. As someone who's very shy, kind of socially anxious in person, it's a very cool medium to be able to express how you feel and like different topics that you're passionate about on this creative space. I think social media gets a really bad rap of, especially like my parents' generation, they're like, oh, kids are always on their phones, these, you know, all of that. But I think it just provides such a cool space to connect. And I think if you use it as a tool and you kind of think of it in that way, I think it's so amazing. Yeah,
no, absolutely. So true. I just wanted to jump onto the Canvas slide that we're looking at and we're creating together. We've had some responses that Chantel has so beautifully been creating into art, and we can see a few here. One that I saw was, through art, I carry the child I once was, and I hope it creates healing. So beautiful. I think that's literally this whole conversation wrapped up in one sentence. Our past experiences and the person that we were carries through to how we express ourselves in the present and what we stand for as well. And in terms of healing, we always talk about in psychology the inner child. We always hold on to the inner child, that little baby version of you that's asking for help, asking for healing, asking for us to be kinder to ourselves. And I think that's, a beautiful way in which we can use art as a way to advocate for healing. And Joliza as well, through art, I carry my past, and I hope it creates unity through passion. What a strong insight there. Again, we're looking at that past reflection, that insight into who we were and what we want to become. And I think a resonating statement that we're all sharing here is unity. It's the community and the passion that we create through our artworks for having these spaces where we can unite and feel like we belong. And the world is a very big place, and it's so crazy that we all get to meet here across cultures, across continents, across countries. So this is so cool. A couple more that I saw is, through art, I carry love, and I hope it creates relatability. Oh, how beautiful. That is so nice. I found another one from Raine. Through art, I carry identity, and I hope it creates connection. We also have one from Kier. Through art, I carry heritage, and I hope it creates legacy. This one resonates a lot with kind of the ancestral wisdom, the cultural backgrounds that we can hold pride in and learn to hold pride in as well. Yeah, we come from such different cultures, and as someone who has a very multicultural background, I can understand how much heritage is important and how much legacy for creating spaces to platform our heritage is also so important. And we've been doing things like our PAACI Next Gen Circle to promote this kind of advocacy as well. And hey, Mom. Mom's in here. Through art, I carry culture, and I hope it creates connection. I love it. Okay, so beautiful. I think we might wrap it up there because our cups are full and our canvas is full as well. What a beautiful way to present the conversation that we were having, Chantel. Thank you so much for the amazing talent that you hold. Oh my goodness. I have no
So
words.
beautiful.
Everything is there. The color, the healing, the joy, the sharing, safe spaces, cross-cultural communications, the bridge that art creates for all of us. And what a beautiful visual representation that we have in front of us. So thank you so much, Chantel. Thank you so much for being part of this workshop. And I think we'll take the last few moments to wrap up our conversation for today. Thank you for sticking around. I know it's a very, very long conversation. So we're going to move on into our final closing reflections.
Yes. Firstly, I just want to say thank you so much. It's been really great listening to all the panelists. I have loved this conversation and I wanted to thank you for being a part of our community. And yeah, so you can find us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, just Are You OK? And then you can find us on TikTok at areyouok.pod and also on Instagram at areyouok.pod. And yeah, we thank you so much for supporting us and we hope you go back and have a look at our old episodes because we've really put our heart into them. And I just think it's really great to align the conversations.
So our socials on behalf of Nara Co-op and PAACI is there. Wanted to give big appreciation for just everyone's presence, participations, the speakers, the organizing team. If you enjoyed this session and want a regenerative space where we explore culture, identity through arts, culture, please scan the QR code and we will continue the conversation. And the second thing is to be able to keep these events running. We can't do it alone. So if you want to be a contributor, just flick a message or email us at mabuhay@naracoop.org.au.
Thank you, May, for this opportunity. So, would like to invite everyone to please follow or like our page. And there we have our contact number and our email where you can reach us out. And also, we also have there the initial assessment link where we can give a service through teleconsultation. We can provide that to you. If you want Philippine Mental Health Association to be part on your future events, you can do so. You just have to send us a letter, communication letter, and inform us ahead of time. That's all. Thank you, May.
Thank you so much, Josh. We have finally come to our closing, which is so bittersweet. Thank you so much. We had some really cool conversations happening in the chat as well. Apologies for not being too active there, but I just wanted to highlight a few. A note from Yashal, incredible session. Thank you for the invite. Very informative and interesting to hear about mental health from diverse cultural lenses. And from Gielli, thank you so much for this podcast. It felt informative and healing at the same time. Exactly the kind of spaces we're trying to create. So this is very, very validating. Thank you so much for being part of it. And also from Jeliza, thank you so much for this. I had so much fun and we'll listen to future podcasts as well. And finally, to say a big thank you to everyone that was part of this project. Maraming salamat po. Thank you so much and see you soon. Kita kits. Thanks, Josh.
Thank you so
much.
Thank you, everyone.